Welcome to Guns, Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. One piece of advice that I have heard from military surplus collectors on multiple occasions is that it is not generally worth it to restore a firearm to its original condition unless you're doing it for the love and passion of the hobby or to correct mistakes of FUD past, because you will end up paying more for all the pieces and parts separately than if you had just spent that amount of money up front on a single complete rifle. But I decided to challenge this and kind of show the process and go over the costs of restoring a rifle, because if you saw the video from a few weeks ago, I ended up winning a few auction lots that had barreled Mauser actions for a really good deal. I got 12 for like 65 bucks. So I had about a $5 buy-in on the receiver barrel, which include the trigger, front sight, and rear sight in this case. So I figured there would never be a better opportunity to try and restore this rifle than this case, because generally these actions cost at least $100 on their own. This is a Fabrique Nationale Mauser, made in Belgium for Israel, chambered in 7.62 NATO, with a barrel dating back to 1958, which is early in the cartridge's history. So as I said, I had a $5 buy-in for this. I've purchased all the other pieces I really need. I purchased a stock for about $125, about $135 after shipping. It had all the parts and pieces, and it is an Israeli stock because it does have the 7.62 emblazoned on the toe. Then I also purchased various other parts and pieces that were needed. I did a little bit of duplication on here because I didn't realize, for instance, that this would have the plunger release for the floor plate. So I doubled up on a few pieces, but overall this would probably be another 115, 120. And then finally I purchased the bolt, which was another 125 plus shipping, so about 135 there. Now those are all the main pieces to get it working. I also went ahead and purchased an Israeli specific sight hood, which has some holes on the side, as you can see here. And I have an Israeli sling that I already purchased, so I can get this pretty much up and running right away. So overall, the cost of everything altogether was about just under $400, which is actually a really good deal for this style of rifle right now. So I lucked out pretty well both in the auction and finding all these parts and pieces. Most of the smaller pieces I got off of Numeric, which has a helpful exploited view of the rifle so you can identify all the parts you need. And it also will tell you substitutes, because while the floor plate and follower are surplus and this trigger guard surplus, a couple of the screws are new production, as well as this bolt stop. And the bolt was just a mishmash, and it's mixed, not matching at all, that I purchased off of Sarco, which is where I also got the stock. So I will put it together and we will see how it is. It should be a pretty simple process. Sweet, sweet, naive Gary, so filled with hope that there will be no issues. So I tried to assemble the rifle and things did not go as planned. The stock was held together pretty well and took a punch to get the barrel bands moving, but that was okay. Bolt stop and bolt are able to go in with no issues. Sight hood took some doing, but I just got it started and braced the back with wood. A few thwaps with a hammer set it in place. When I tried to demonstrate this on camera, though, it was loose enough from being on there that I was able to just shove it on. The problem ends up being with the trigger guard. Now, as I mentioned, I purchased this trigger guard as it was listed as Israeli surplus. You can tell because one of the set screw holes is reverse compared to a typical K98. So the rear of the trigger guard just did not fit into the stock. It was physically impossible as I had received it. It was almost flat at the back and did not match the cutout at all. I also know that this may be a weird one-off or variant because someone else ordered the same part from the same place a few days after me, and his fit in both my stock and his stock with no issues. Now, I could have handled this a different way, but I decided to be gunsmith and take away some metal to make it fit. So a bit later, the back end fits. However, it's still slightly too wide along the entire length. So a little dremel, and then it slides into the stock. Great! However, when I tighten the trigger guard screws in fully, there is still a gap in the center. It bulges out of the bottom away from the wood and does not go up high enough in the stock. I could have messed with it more maybe, however, the floor plate button also did not work with the floor plate. I thought it might be damaged, but you know how I mentioned I accidentally ordered extra pieces? Well, I tried swapping out that button, but the one I ordered is larger in diameter than the one in the trigger guard, and it would not fit. So something is just different about this trigger guard in general. I ordered a new trigger guard from the same place, and that one fit no issues. At the time, I also ordered a few more items. A spacer, since the 7.62 NATO cartridge is shorter than the 8mm Mauser, which was used in some Israeli Mausers, but not all. I also ordered K98 lock screws, since I was not certain ahead of time if the trigger guard I was receiving would have a place to insert them. This is where I ran into some more problems. The spacer I ordered goes at the back of the magwell. I have a German K98 converted for Israeli use, and it does have a spacer, but it is located at the front of the action. The follower I have and the follower I have in this German conversion do not fit and function with this spacer I ordered at the rear. I think I would need to purchase a shorter follower to make it work. However, since I knew that not all Israeli Mausers had them, I put it together without it installed, and it seems to feed fine. I go to put in the set screws, and again, problem. They do not fit the threading. Upon further research, I discover there is a slight difference in the threading of the Israeli Mauser set screws and the standard K98 set screws. So I order some Yugoslavian M48 screws, which are supposed to fit, and those do fit just fine. For further confusion, the K98 set or lock screws do fit in the first trigger guard I purchased, which is just weird and adds to the mystery. I don't know what to make of that one still. For the sake of safety, I went ahead and ordered a no-go gauge to be certain it wasn't too big when using a random bolt. To do this on a Mauser, you want to remove the extractor from the bolt so it does not interfere. Push on the point and slide it off and pop it up and off. Important note, when you remove the extractor claw, be certain that the extractor collar nubs, which hold the extractor, is still oriented the same way as the extractor would be when reinserting the bolt. This is important because this can bind up in the action otherwise and be difficult to remove. Ask me how I know. I did not do this, and I just put the bolt in not thinking, and it took a while for me to, one, figure it out, and two, get it out. Anyways, you simply insert the gauge into the chamber and try to close the bolt. On a no-go gauge, if it closes all the way, you have an issue. Anyways, mine was safe and did not close. I started out initially at $400 or so into this rifle, and if I ordered everything accurately and had no issues, I'd be a little over that if you count the lock screws. As things stood with the additional trigger guard, additional screws, the extra parts I ordered, the spacer, that's another $80, so I'm still under $500, but not as good as it would have been if there were no issues or mistakes. This was definitely an educational experience, not just learning about these Mausers specifically, but also in general about restoring a firearm to original condition. Things don't always fit when they are supposed to, the internet is not always correct, and you can easily end up spending more than you want to when you just need one more piece to get it correct. And for a while, I really did consider ordering a specific bolt that was an Israeli Mauser bolt, but it was more than twice as much, and there isn't really any actual difference, so I decided to just order one online without having everything be quote-unquote correct. Overall, this project was fun. I have some other barreled actions that I will probably build, at least some of them over time on this channel. I don't know when I will though. Most of the actions are Chinese Shanghai Shek Mausers, and I can assemble them, but they're not based on the K98, so the pieces will be a bit harder to source. That's all for today. If you have any good stories about restoring these rifles or restoring any military surplus in general, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know if there's something I missed or something important about the Israeli K98s that I did not have here. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others to help the channel grow. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. Thanks for watching.